I'm about to introduce to you Gregory Orr, and I guess what I really want to say is that I could read you all of the accomplishments and titles of his books, which you'll find in the program, which we really worked hard to include. And I made a list from memory: Burning the Empty Nests, We Must Make a Kingdom of It, Orpheus and Eurydice, The Red House, City of Salt, Poetry as Survival, The Blessing, The Caged Owl, and Concerning the Book That Is the Body of the Beloved. Poems from that book you'll see in paintings in the art exhibit and in the bookstore. And I realized that I may have left out a couple or two, or three. Richer Entanglements, I remembered this afternoon, is not on my list, but it is on my list. It's something that, it was one of the first books that I read. It was inside a collection of journaling and talking about writing. He has received Guggenheim Fellowship, Rockefeller Foundation Award, National Endowment for the Arts, American Academy of Arts and Letters, and many other awards. And I've had the good fortune to learn from him at the University of Virginia, where he teaches in Charlottesville, Virginia. He's professor of creative writing. But there's only one way to really get to know a poet, and that is when you hear him read. And so I am very, very pleased to introduce to you Gregory Orr.
I would like to reiterate what many people have already said, how wonderful it's been to be here. I've enjoyed myself immensely, and I feel as if I'm already reading to many, many people that I know, and that's quite a nice feeling. First, 4 poems I'm going to read are from my new and selected, and then I'll read from a more recent book. Often I write short poems. What might I mean by short? Here we go. Washing my face. Last night's dreams disappear. They are like the sink draining, a transparent rose swallowed by its stem. It's 4 lines if you count the title. The demonstration, a little context for this. 3 names are mentioned in here. Figures from the civil rights movement, volunteers who were volunteers in Mississippi Summer 1964, who were killed in Mississippi. The poem itself is set at the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 1964. I was 17 at that time. This was the first political demonstration I went to, and the experience that inspired me to work for the civil rights movement the following summer when I turned 18. The demonstration, Democratic National Convention, Atlantic City, New Jersey, 1964. They bob above us all afternoon, 3 giant charcoal portraits of Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney, civil rights martyrs whose tortured bodies have just been found in the red clay wall of a dam in rural Mississippi. staring up at their flat, larger-than-life faces. I envy the way they gaze at the gray ocean and the gray buildings with the calm indifference of those whose agonies are over. Myself, I'm a frightened teenager at my first demonstration, carrying a placard that demands the seating of a mixed delegation from a southern state. No one prepared me for the crowd's hostility, the names we're called. Still, we chant the slogan Reason proposed, one man, one vote. And still it holds the small shape we make on the dilapidated boardwalk, reminding me now of the magic circles medieval conjurers drew to protect themselves from demons their spells had conjured up. Summoned up. Taylor Malley and I were talking about reciting poems from memory, and I said, well, what always worries me is I think I know the poem, but then when I get near the end, I get afraid I'll forget the last line. I misread the last line. It was demons their spells had summoned up. I'm too old to learn. We must make a kingdom of it. It's a poem in 3 parts. There are 4 words that are themselves quoted words in the poem, and I'm just going to mention them now, so as not to do this when they go and look like I'm doing a hula dance. The words are I, she, desire, and flame. The only other thing I'll mention is one of those wonders of nature that astounded me when I first encountered it, which is the grass snake is the most beautiful emerald green creature you could ever see. But what's even more amazing is that its tongue is green too. This bright, beautiful green. Astounding sight. I don't know. Who would think of a green tongue? What was God thinking when he did the green tongue? We must make a kingdom of it so that a colony will breed here. Love rubs together 2 words, I and she. How the long bone of the personal pronoun warms its cold length against her fur. She plants the word desire that makes the very air amorous, that causes the light from its tall stalk to bend down until it almost kisses the ground. It was green, I saw it, tendril flickering from dry soil like a grass snake's tongue. Call it flame, light become life, what the word wants, what the earth in its turning yearns for, to writhe and rise up, even to fly briefly like the shovelful over the gravedigger's shoulder. My whole life I've been a free verse poet. It's just the way that poems announce themselves to me. But for some reason, during the period when I was writing the poems for the new, that turned out to be the new section of my New and Selected, I became fascinated by villanelles and ended up committing 10 of them. A villanelle, as you know, is a very restricted form of lines repeating first and third line of the first stanza, cycle back through the poem again, the strict villanelle is restricted to 2 rhymes. Of course, the first and third lines are going to rhyme. It came to me in the madness of cleverness that poetry writing is, that this poem called Paradise would use as its central rhyme words paradise as that place and a pair of dice. Wow, that was just. To say it was clever, can't do it justice, of course. But there we go. There we go. Paradise. Life is random as a rolled pair of dice. What those thrown cubes will show, no one can know. Yet everyone thinks he wants paradise. By which she means cool drinks, the largest slice of all the pies. Money too, all the dough. Yet life's random as a rolled pair of dice. Seldom the same number will come up twice in a row. Still, show me the rainbow, everyone thinks. He wants a paradise where everything is calm, sexy, and precise. Some setting that's removed the risk and woe of life's randomness. So the pair of dice, one a burning coal, the other a lump of ice, cancel each other's extremes. The glow of what everyone thinks she wants, paradise, is what ensues. Something lukewarm, something nice. A world in which volcanoes never blow isn't my idea of paradise. Love life's randomness, the rolled pair of dice. What I'm going to read from here on in is from a book called Concerning the Book That Is the Body of the Beloved. And it's a lyric sequence of about 180 poems. They don't have any titles, and I won't say anything between them, but I do need to give a little bit of a context. I always thought of myself, I think of myself as a lyric poet, which to me means we get to do the mysteries of love and loss as our central preoccupations, or if you're biologically inclined, sex and death, whichever you think sounds better. And I felt, well, that's what I do. I dramatize those mysteries or whatever. They work through me. But what I realized at a certain point, or it came to me, that I had kind of forgotten the third mystery in my writing, the mystery of poetry itself, and what poetry and song do that seems so central. They restore, they heal, they resurrect the lost beloved. To me, the beloved is that thing or place or poem that we care about deeply, that we care so deeply that it brings us out of ourselves into relation with the rest of the world, with things in the world, and thereby meaning happens. Another thing in this book is something called the book with a big B. And for me, that's all the poems and songs that have ever been written. We write, as poets, we write poems for our own purposes, our own private and personal purposes. But it came to me that once these poems had served their purpose in our lives, they became part of this giant invisible anthology which just hovers in the world and from which all of us draw the poems that we need to sustain us. All this sort of happened for me. The poems came out of a phrase that appeared in my head one morning about 5 years ago. The book that is the resurrection of the body of the beloved, which is the world. And these poems sort of explore that. I'll say one last thing. Several of the opening poems mention Osiris, who was an Egyptian god who was dismembered by his enemy, and then the parts of his body were reassembled by Isis, his beloved, his wife. And so we begin. This is the sort of preamble to the book. Resurrection of the body of the beloved, which is the world, which is the poem of the world, the poem of the body. Mortal ourselves and filled with awe, we gather the scattered limbs of Osiris, that he should live again, that death not be oblivion. The beloved is dead, limbs and all the body's miraculous parts scattered across Egypt, stained with dark mud. We must find them, gather them together, bring them into a single space, as an anthologist might collect all the poems that matter into a single book, a book which is the body of the beloved, which is the world. Who wants to lose the world for all its tumult and suffering? Who wants to leave the world for all its sorrow? Not I. And so I come to the book, which is also the body of the beloved. And so I come to the poem. The poem is the world scattered by passion, then gathered together again so that we may have hope. The shape of the book is the door to the grave, is the shape of the stone closed over us, so that we may know terror is what we pass through to reach hope. And courage is our necessary companion. The shape of the book is dark as death, and every page is lit with hope, glows with the light of the vital body. The poem begins and ends with a quoted phrase, "What is life?" What is life? When you first hear that question, it echoes in your skull as if someone shouted in an empty cave. The same answer each time. The resurrection of the body of the beloved, which is the world. Every poem different, but telling the same story. And we've been gathering them in a book since writing began. And before that, as songs or poems people memorized and recited aloud when someone asked, "What is life?" There's nothing occult going on. It's not as if the skull opens along its ancient fissures like a bone lotus, spreading its petals so as to let a blue light leak out. Nothing at all like that. No magic. What happens is natural. The heart uttering its hurt and its happiness, syllables whose rhythm captures the pulse of sorrow or joy, the slow ache or throb of it. And what occurs next can be explained by the physics of feeling, by that science through which emotion becomes motion, love jolting the sleeper awake. One of the gifts about thinking about the book as this giant anthology was that it allowed me to write about all my favorite poets. Because, of course, every poet is in this image giving their poems to the book. So I can single out ones I like to talk about and quote them when I want to, as here, quoting Sappho. Fragment of Sappho. When Sappho wrote, "Whatever one loves most is beautiful," she began the poems of heart's praise that comprise the book of the body of the beloved, which is the world. Everything in the book flows from that single poem, or the countless others that say the same thing in other words, other ways. How could that Chinese poet, dead 3,000 years, know how much we love the world? If only we could talk to him as he talks to us in his poem. If only we could say how much his words mean to us. Quick, write it down in the book. Send it to him 3,000 years from now. I put the beloved in a wooden coffin. The fire ate his body. The flames devoured her. I put the beloved in a poem or song, tucked it between 2 pages of the book. How bright the flames, all of me burning, all of me on fire and still whole. Late in Whitman's life, He'd had a stroke. He was partially paralyzed. He lived in a small place in Camden, New Jersey, but every once in a while, or once a week, he would have somebody take him in a horse and wagon out to the countryside, drop him off by the road. And this is a little story about that. He also used to love to make lists of things. Birds that he heard, trees that he saw. He loved the names of things. And even when he didn't name them in poems, he would just make these long lists in his notebooks. Whitman's list of things he could see as he sat half paralyzed, an old man by a woodland pond. The names of the different trees, the birds he glimpsed or only heard, yet recognized by their songs. The bushes and grasses that grew there. How happy those lists made him. Tamarack, birch, maple, larch. Gazing from where he loafed on the bank, or from the pond itself, where he floated naked in the round pool of it, as if he were the pupil in a wide open eye, and the trees around it, delicate and strong as lashes. Oh, the world, what eye is wide enough? What pupil sufficiently diligent? Let's put our poems in the book. Let's add what we see to the beautiful list. The flower daisy comes from a metaphor, day's eye, the sun, compressed in English into daisy. I don't know whether the world changes so quickly. Who knows what still remains? She loves me not, the daisy. May that not die out. May it not be replaced by something on the internet. Yes. I think, you got to. Anyway. There's the daisy, white petals and a plush yellow center. And so we begin our anxious interrogation. She loves me not. Plucking it bare like a plump chicken we plan to cook. Daisy comes from day's eye, the sun, a flower as metaphor for the world's splendor. The beloved shining on us all the time, and us with our silly questions. Do words outlast the world they describe? Do the things fall away, leaving only the husks of their names? And what does their perishing ask of us? Lift up, lift up. A song could redeem them. A poem could fill them with life again. Don't we owe the world at least that much? that gave itself so freely to us. A short poem. To be alive, not just the carcass, but the spark. That's crudely put, but if we're not supposed to dance, why all this music? The world so huge and dark, it swallows our cry. But we're no longer lost. The beloved has heard us and even now approaches. We move toward each other like two words that will join in a poem. A small poem, a little song, but one in which we're not alone. Three more. Calm down, calm down. But why calm down? When I'm dead and only a poem in the book read by someone not yet born, then I'll be calm. Then I'll tell them in a quiet voice what a miracle it is to be alive. I won't shout and jump around. I'll whisper it in her ear. And if I'm lucky, she'll shout and jump around. Her heart will beat a little faster. Last poem. If a peach leads you into the world, into an appreciation of its delights, how much more so the beloved? A morsel of peach meat, a single kiss, and you know pleasure has depths beyond measuring. All this not subject to loss, but certain of it, guaranteed to vanish. Therefore, more precious, therefore brought back by poems and songs. The mouth open as if to sing, as if to sink its brave teeth in a peach. Thank you.